Hello and welcome to Insight AI Brief Gaming. Today we're diving into a game that's got the industry buzzing, CLOUDHEIM. Before we jump into the full breakdown, please hit that follow, like, and share button to support our channel. So our mission today is really to cut through the hype, maybe some of the noise surrounding CLOUDHEIM. It's conceptually one of the most ambitious games we've seen in a while, right?
Oh, absolutely. And we've gathered quite a bit to work with here. We've got stuff straight from the developers, Noodlecat Games, some professional previews, COG Connected had one, really detailed beta impressions, and, just general community chatter.
So a good mix. We're aiming to pull out the core mechanics, really understand these surprising genre blends they're going for, and maybe get a sense of the early reality versus the big promises, all for you listening.
Yeah, and CLOUDHEIM is almost the definition of a genre buffet. It's so mixed up that apparently David Hunt, the CEO over at Noodlecat, even admitted it's extremely hard to answer without word vomiting a ton of games.
Yeah, I saw that quote. So what are we looking at, fundamentally?
Okay, so at its heart, it's a cooperative, multiplayer action RPG, but then they've smashed in, deep survival crafting elements, and on top of that, a full-on shopkeeping sim.
Wow. Okay, it's not just borrowing features then, it's like
they're trying to genetically engineer a new type of game. It's ambitious, you have to give them that.
And that internal pitch really says it all, doesn't it? Valheim meets Zelda.
Exactly. That immediately sets this incredibly high, almost contradictory standard. Valheim makes you think methodical survival, gritty resources, maybe slow building.
While Zelda is all about, epic adventure, fluid movement, maybe that whimsical art style, they seem almost opposed.
And the community comparisons just keep adding layers. You mentioned Zelda, people see that in the art. Yeah, but also specifically in traversal, like using a lasso tool to get around these floating islands.
Okay, the lasso makes sense for Zelda, but then the shopkeeping.
That immediately brings up games like Moonlighter, maybe even Rizzeteer for those who remember it. That whole loop of dungeon diving for goods, then selling them.
Right, and just when you think, okay, co-op, fantasy, shopkeeping, survival, boom, the sources suddenly pivot to the combat.
And it's heavily influenced by fighting games. Like Super Street Fighter 2 mechanics are mentioned. That's where it goes from potentially cozy crafting to just chaotic action.
Yeah, it's wild. So the big question for this deep dive is, how are all these seemingly clashing pieces supposed to fit together? Is there a logic to it?
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out. It doesn't seem random. It feels like they're trying to use different genres to solve different gameplay needs. Like the chief art officer worked on Fortnite.
Ah, okay, that explains the look then. That vibrant, very readable, but potentially chaotic style. Kind of that blue sky design thing.
Exactly. They seem to be aiming for constant engagement, but across really different modes. You're gathering, fighting, crafting, and selling. It's a lot.
Which means you really need a solid anchor, right? A central hub to tie it all together. And that brings us to the setting. It's Norse mythology, but like an alternate reality.
Yeah, specifically after Ragnarok, the world is shattered, scattered across these floating islands, and you, the player, are basically trying to help rebuild society.
And the main hub for doing that is the Odin Shell.
This is critical. It's not just your base. It's your transport, your workshop, your marketplace. The sources describe it as a massive flying turtle island.
A flying turtle? Seriously?
Seriously, apparently carrying a fragment of a dead god's power. It's a pretty strong image for a mobile base, you gotta admit.
Okay, fair enough. So functionally, this turtle is where you spend most of your non-combat time.
Pretty much, yeah. It's where you prep for adventures, do all your crafting, test skills, and crucially, it's tied to progression. You unlock new worlds using exploration badges or world stars found out there, and the shell literally flies you to them.
And this is where the base building comes in, on the turtle's back.
Right. And this is where they say player expression really shines. You're not just plonking down a few chests. You're laying out market stalls, optimizing crafting machine layouts, basically turning this ancient cosmic turtle into your own flying mall.
Okay, let's break down the key bits of infrastructure on this turtle mall. It sounds like it goes way beyond just a workbench. We should probably start with the cleansing pool. That sounds ominous.
It's actually a really smart mechanic, kind of like a resource bottleneck. See, most common loot you bring back from the islands is corrupted. It's useless as is.
So you can't immediately craft with it or sell it?
Nope. You have to purify it in the cleansing pool first. Only then can you smelt it, craft with it, or get its actual value when selling. It adds this necessary time cost, this processing step.
And I bet that becomes a real issue if you're playing co-op and bringing back tons of stuff.
Oh, absolutely. The sources, especially the beta guides, really emphasize this. If you're serious about grinding high-level zones, that purification time turns into a major weight. You get a huge backlog.
So you need multiple pools.
Exactly. Investing in upgrading and building more cleansing pools becomes essential for efficiency. It forces an interesting early game choice. Spend your gold on better weapons or on speeding up your loot processing. It ties the economy straight back to the combat loop.
Okay, so that handles the valuable corrupted stuff. What about the junk? The stuff you just don't need? That's where Nasher comes in.
Nasher.
Yeah.
The ever-hungry Nasher. Yeah, this is their, let's call it ingenious solution for getting rid of junk and making it useful. It's this big creature on the shell.
And you just feed it your trash?
Pretty much. You feed it unwanted items, excess ore, low-level gear, whatever. They call it giving it yummy in its tummy, which is kind of funny.
So it's not just like selling to a vendor for pennies. It actually does something.
Exactly. That's the clever part. When you feed Nasher enough junk, you hit these capacity caps, and it rewards you. It might unlock new skills for your character, or maybe upgrade passive abilities.
Huh. That's a brilliant loop. It actually incentivizes you to clean out your inventory and discard stuff, turning waste into progression.
It is really smart. Though some community feedback did mention the amount needed to reach the next unlock ramps up pretty quickly. So it demands a constant flow of, well, junk.
Okay, so junk goes to Nasher for skills. What about the good raw materials, the ores you purified?
Those go down the more traditional path. You take them to the smelter. That's where you process things like tin, copper, and the really high-end stuff like Boulderian iron, which apparently only drops in the toughest zones.
Right, turning ore into ingots. Standard crafting fare.
Yeah, and then those ingots go to the blacksmith, who uses them to forge your weapons and armor. It's familiar, but it's all housed within this Odin shell ecosystem. That constant need for better materials is what keeps you going back out to fight.
Makes sense. Now, before we leave the hub entirely, we need to talk about the sword cupine. That sounds spiky.
Haha, yeah. The sword cupine is basically your build customization station. It's where you manage your loadouts, picking weapons, armor sets you've unlocked.
But more importantly, it's where you adjust your character's focus.
Exactly. It lets you re-spec on the fly. You can instantly shift your focus between, say, strength for melee, magic for spells, speed, or vigor for health and defense.
Instantly. That's a big deal. Most games make respecing costly or time-consuming.
Right. It really suggests they want you to experiment constantly. Maybe adapt your build not just between runs, but maybe for a specific boss, or even depending on who you're playing co-op with that day.
Yeah, that fits with the flexible class idea later on. If you find a cool new axe, you don't need to re-roll a character.
Nope. Just pop over to the cupine, maybe pump up your strength and vigor stats, and you're good to go. That freedom is key if they want people to actually mess around with all the physics and different weapon types. If you felt locked in, you probably wouldn't bother.
Okay, one last thing about the hub that sounds really neat, especially for co-op. The treasure gateway.
Ah, yes, the treasure gateway. This is a really nice quality of life touch for groups. Instead of, arguing over loot drops mid-dungeon or messing with complicated shared inventories.
Which is always a pain.
Totally. Instead, all the items everyone finds during the adventure just get funneled into this communal deposit box on the Odin shell.
And then what?
Then, when one player interacts with it back at the base, all the loot, the entire haul from the run, just spills out onto the floor for everyone.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. Like a big chaotic piñata moment.
Exactly. It creates this shared, celebratory, spoils of war moment. Everyone sees the payoff together. And it naturally leads to discussion. Okay, what needs purifying? What's going straight to the smelter? What's junk for Nasher? It helps the group figure out priorities organically.
That actually flows perfectly into the next big pillar,
Yep.
the economy and shopkeeping sim. This is that combat meets capitalism loop you mentioned.
Yeah, this is where CLOUDHEIM really tries to distinguish itself from a standard action RPG. The loop is critical. You fight to get resources, but you also sell those resources in crafted goods to fund more fighting, upgrading the base, buying materials, expanding your crafting capabilities.
So very much like Moonlighter or Risseteer, but maybe with higher stakes because of the ARPG combat.
Precisely. The sources really emphasize that the shop isn't just a place to dump your unwanted gear for a few coins. It's a core feature. They say it's where player expression really shines, and it ties into the lore too. You're helping reconnect these scattered cultures by trading goods.
And it's not just selling to generic NPCs, right? The sources mention different customer types, like from Arcadia versus Dustlinger.
Yeah, And that adds a surprising layer of management. Arcadian shoppers might want, say, refined magical components or crafted items, things that require more processing, and maybe you can charge more.
Whereas Dustlinger folks might want raw materials, sturdy weapons, survival gear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you might need to tailor your stock based on who's visiting your shop, maybe build reputation with certain factions. It turns selling into something more strategic than just setting a price and forgetting it.
Okay, but here's the potential downside. Does managing all that customer preferences, stock levels, start to feel like homework? Especially when the combat is supposed to be so chaotic and fun.
That's a fair concern, and Noodlecat seems aware of it. Their approach sounds flexible. For the casual player, they apparently designed it to be pretty fire and forget. You can just chuck stuff onto a basic sales stand and walk away. Minimal fuss.
But for the min-maxers.
Oh yeah, the depth is there if you want it.
What?
Optimizing prices, stall placement, really digging into customer demands. You can absolutely go deep trying to maximize profit. They want to remove unnecessary grind, not all grind.
Okay, let's get practical for a moment. If someone's starting out or just wants efficient cash flow, what did the beta testers figure out were the best early gold farming methods?
The easiest entry point apparently is fishing. Simple minigame. But some fish are instant cash cows, like suckerfish. Automatically sell for 300 gold each time you catch one. That's huge early on.
Wow, okay. Any others?
Bubble blubs were mentioned too. They don't auto-sell, but you put them on a sales stand, and they reliably go for 100 gold each. So it's steady, low-effort income while you do other things.
But the real moneymaker, the thing that turns basic resources into big profits, involves unlocking the kitchen, right?
Ah, yes, the kitchen. This is where things get interesting from a logistical standpoint. Once you unlock it, you can take super cheap basic ingredients like eggs you buy from an NPC vendor named Cell and cook them into much more valuable stuff.
Like what? Snacks?
Yeah, precious snacks, special pet foods, refined cheese. The beta guides actually crunch the numbers on this.
Give us the juicy details. What's the profit margin like?
Okay, take the egg example. You buy 2 eggs, maybe 10 gold each, so 20 gold total investment.
Yep.
You use the cook pot, which is quick to turn those 2 eggs into a specific snack. That snack, placed on a sales stand, apparently sells reliably for 100 gold.
Wait, so 20 gold in, 100 gold out. That's an 80 gold profit, a 400% return.
Exactly. It's a massive multiplier.
There's always a but. It can't just be free money.
Right. The challenge isn't the cooking time, it's the supply chain. You're dependent on Syl, the vendor, actually having those cheap eggs in stock. So dedicated players end up running back and forth, buying ingredients, processing them.
Or spending time gathering ingredients in the world instead of fighting for valuable ores.
Precisely. It creates this core tension in the economy loop. Is it faster to risk combat for high-value drops? Or safer and maybe more predictable to run the snack factory? That's the management puzzle.
And to sell all those snacks efficiently, you need to invest back into the shop itself, right? Upgrading the sales stands.
Yes, exactly. You go to the furniture hub, on the Odin shell, buy more stands, upgrade the ones you have. Better stands, sell more items simultaneously, increasing your passive income while you're out adventuring or fishing or whatever.
So the gold from the snacks gets immediately reinvested into base expansion and efficiency.
Which lets you craft better gear with the materials you're getting from combat, which lets you fight tougher enemies for better loot. It closes the loop perfectly. Selling funds fighting. Fighting provides materials for selling.
Okay, hub covered, economy covered. Let's shift to what sounds like the most unique and maybe riskiest element. The combat engine. This is where they're really leaning into that fighting game influence.
Yeah, this is clearly where Noodlecat wants CLOUDHEIM to stand out. They're not just tweaking standard ARPG combat, they're aiming for something built around combo-driven physics-based combat. The key words there are physics and chaos.
And the physics aren't just for show, right? They actually dictate damage.
That's the core idea. Forget just base weapon stats for a second. Damage seems heavily influenced by environmental interaction and velocity. The world is described as fully breakable.
So you're meant to be like tearing down pillars onto enemies, kicking explosive barrels.
All that. Plus, using that lasso tool we mentioned earlier, not just for traversal, but maybe to drag enemies into hazards like tornadoes from spells. And the big rule seems to be more airtime equals more damage.
Airtime. So launching enemies is key.
Apparently, yes. Hitting an enemy isn't just about the impact, it's about sending them flying. The longer they're airborne, the harder they hit when they land, or the more vulnerable they are to follow-ups.
That sounds incredibly reliant on co-op synergy.
Oh, totally. The sources give examples like one player launches a big enemy upwards with a kick. Then their co-op buddy maybe positioned perfectly, swats that enemy midair with a huge weapon.
Like juggling in a fighting game, almost?
Kind of, adding more velocity, more force, so the final impact when it crashes down is devastating. The community apparently started calling it pinballing enemies.
Huh. And does that knockback affect other enemies too?
It does. If you launch an enemy to a crowd behind it, that impact damages the mobs it hits.
Yeah.
And there's a size difference factor too. Dropping a big, heavy enemy onto a small one is described as basically obliterating the small one. It allows for this emergent crowd control and AoE damage that isn't just tied to spells.
Okay, this sounds potentially amazing, but also incredibly hard to control. To make it work, they borrowed specific mechanics from fighting games. The first one is cancel systems. Can you break that down?
Sure, it's a bit dense, but super important for the flow they're aiming for. In a lot of ARPGs, if you swing a big, slow weapon, you're locked in. You do the wind-up, the hit, and then there's that recovery animation where you're stuck and vulnerable.
Right, you can't immediately dodge or attack again.
Exactly. A cancel system lets you interrupt that recovery animation. So right after your axe hits, instead of waiting for your character to slowly reset, you can cancel the end of that animation and immediately input another command.
Like immediately dodge or block or even start another attack or cast a spell?
Precisely. Maybe finish a heavy axe swing and instantly fire off a quick projectile, or transition into a faster sword combo if another enemy closes in. The developers apparently said players are never locked out of an action because of a timer.
So it's all about manual control and reaction, not waiting for cooldowns or animation cycles.
That's the goal. It allows for constant chaining, reacting fluidly to the chaos, rather than being stuck in predetermined sequences. It's meant to keep the combat feeling fast and responsive, even with heavy weapons.
That ability to chain actions rapidly leads right into the other big fighting game concept they're using instead of traditional cooldowns, mana burn.
Right. Mana burn is their unique risk-reward system for abilities. The upside: you can spam your skills. Throw lightning bolts, use powerful special attacks one after another as fast as you can hit the buttons. There's no waiting for a timer to tick down.
Okay, that sounds incredibly powerful. What's the catch? There has to be a catch.
The catch is the burn meter. Every time you use an ability, instead of triggering a cooldown, it adds to this meter. It's like a heat gauge. Keep spamming, and the meter fills up.
And when it fills?
Bad things happen. You enter this critical overload state. The screen apparently gets visual effects, like pink and purple flames, indicating you've pushed too hard, and the penalties are severe.
Like what? Just you can't use abilities for a bit.
Worse, you get hit with a massive movement speed reduction, so you're slow and can't dodge effectively. And critically, you become incredibly vulnerable, sources mentioned potentially facing a one-shot kill from the next enemy hit.
Whoa. So it's a real gamble. You can go all out, but if you misjudge it and burn out at the wrong moment...
You're basically a sitting duck. It forces you to make these split-second decisions. Can I afford one more big hit? Is it worth the risk of burning out if I don't kill the target? It rewards timing and resource management, not just mindless button mashing.
That makes sense. It encourages skillful aggression. Now, to support players investing time in specific playstyles, there's also weapon mastery.
Yeah, weapon mastery seems designed to reward commitment and smooth out progression. Basically, the longer you use a specific weapon type, a great sword, a staff, whatever, the better it gets. Its inherent power and damage slowly increase over time through use.
So that starter sword you really like, if you stick with it, it might actually keep pace for a while, even if you find statistically better raw items.
Potentially, yeah. A weapon starting at, say, 90 damage might climb to 100 or 105 after you've used it a lot. It means finding a slightly better base weapon doesn't automatically make your favorite obsolete.
And it also means when you craft a brand new, powerful weapon, you can quickly get its mastery up so it feels effective sooner.
Exactly. It encourages trying out different weapons because you know you can bring them up to speed relatively quickly through use, tying back into that whole experimentation philosophy from the sword coupon.
Let's talk specific builds. The beta guides must have highlighted some powerful combinations. What about the Vicious Strike ability?
Vicious Strike was a popular one.
Yeah.
It's described as this powerful overhead slash. It does a few things. Firstly, it restores some life when you use it, which is great for sustain.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, it deals bonus damage to enemies below 50% health, making it a strong finisher.
Okay, nice utility. But what makes it spammable?
The key is, if Vicious Strike actually kills the enemy, its mana burn cost is massively reduced or even refunded. So if you're chaining kills on low health enemies, you can just keep using Vicious Strike over and over, dealing damage and healing yourself constantly.
Wow, okay. That sounds like amazing sustain for solo play. And players found a way to make it benefit the whole group. Something about a Soul Gaze insignia.
Right, the Soul Gaze insignia is this accessory that synergizes perfectly. When you have it equipped, it boosts the amount of healing you get from abilities like Vicious Strike. But the crucial part, it also heals nearby allies whenever you land that healing strike.
No way. So the aggressive melee character constantly finishing off enemies suddenly becomes a mobile healing beacon for the party.
Exactly, it's a fantastic piece of emergent synergy. The damage dealer's aggression directly translates into group sustain without them having to actively play a support role. It links that hyper combat back to teamwork.
That's really clever design. What about specific weapons? The Snowburst legendary got a lot of buzz.
Yeah, the Snowburst sounded like a real powerhouse in the beta. Testers loved its versatility. It apparently has great area of effect damage built in. It also has some kind of boomerang effect.
A boomerang on a melee weapon.
Seems like it, yeah. Making it effective at mid-range, which is unusual. And on top of that, it has an innate ability that shoots out ice waves. So it's great for clearing packs of smaller enemies and provides crowd control. Plus, its damage scaling with mastery was reportedly top tier for bosses.
Sounds like an all-around winner. Okay, finally on combat, let's touch on the starting classes. There are 4, but the sources emphasize they're just starting points.
Very much so. The game seems built for flexibility. You pick one initially, but you can ultimately use any weapon or skill you unlock. The starting 4 are just templates. Spellblade, mix of magic physical, Outlander, heavy hitter, Treasure Hunter, fast, agile, and Sentinel, defense utility.
Any standouts in terms of popularity early on?
Early community polls apparently leaned heavily towards the Spellblade, probably because that mix of magic and physical felt like a good way to experiment with a physics system and different damage types right from the start.
Makes sense. That flexibility feels key, letting the player adapt to the chaos rather than being locked into one way of dealing with it.
That seems to be the core philosophy, yeah. Channel the chaos, don't just get overwhelmed by it.
Okay, so we've painted a picture of incredible ambition, complex systems, unique blends, but we need the reality check. Those early beta impressions from, what was it, July 2025, they showed both the hype and some pretty significant problems.
For sure. The initial hype wasn't unfounded. People were calling it ambitious chaos. Previews praised the potential stunning visuals, physics-driven combat, deep crafting, and that shared co-op progression system was a universally loved feature.
Right, everyone getting the loot together, encouraging trying different builds without fighting over drops, that's a huge win for co-op.
Totally. And comparisons were flying around. People saw echoes of Genshin Impact or even Zelda. Skyward Sword and the flying mechanics and the vibrant world, the potential felt enormous.
There's always a but with early betas. Let's get into the friction. What were the big complaints, the things that were really holding it back in that state?
The main recurring thing was polish, or rather the lack of it, which, okay, it's a beta, you expect that to some degree, but here it seemed to impact core enjoyment.
How so? Like the visuals. You mentioned the Fortnite connection and the blue sky aesthetic.
Right, the cartoony, quirky look is intentional.
Huh.
But in the beta build, the lack of polish made it feel less like a deliberate style and more like, well, incomplete assets. Things looked sparse, sometimes texture seemed missing or low res. It felt jarring rather than charming.
And the interface didn't help.
Definitely not. The UI and menus were widely called out as being functional at best.
Yeah.
Placeholder fonts, temporary icons, just a general lack of design cohesion. Trying to navigate the complex crafting or shop menus felt like a chore, constantly reminding you it was a work in progress. That really hurt the immersion, especially for the management side.
Okay, visuals and UI are one thing, but the most worrying feedback seems to have been about the combat itself, the centerpiece. It was inconsistent.
Yeah, and that's the crux of the issue, isn't it? If the physics combat is your main selling point, it needs to feel good. People reported that while the animations looked like they had weight, the actual feel of combat, the rhythm, was off and off.
What was the specific problem? Hit feedback.
That was the biggest one. Described as nearly non-existent or inconsistent. You'd land what looked like a massive hammer blow, but it would feel like a light tap. It lacked that satisfying crunch, that auditory and visual confirmation that you'd connected powerfully. Like you said earlier, very unlike Street Fighter, where every hit feels impactful.
And if the feedback is missing, you can't really judge if your physics maneuvers are working, right? Or if your cancels are timed well.
Exactly, you're kind of guessing. Combine that with reports of finicky targeting, making it hard to reliably launch enemies where you wanted them, like into hazards, and you get the single biggest complaint about big fights.
Let me guess.
visual chaos.
You got it. The combination of all the particle effects from spells, the explosions, the enemies bouncing everywhere due to the physics, it often just turned into a visual mess. Players literally couldn't see their own character sometimes, let alone track the specific enemy they were trying to pinball.
So instead of mastering the chaos, you felt like you were just surviving it.
That's a good way to put it. The amazing potential of the system was getting lost in the noise and lack of clear feedback.
So the vision is incredible, but the execution clearly needed, and probably still needs, a lot of refinement to find that balance between chaotic fun and controllable strategy. How has Noodlecat responded? They've got veterans from Epic, EA, BioWare. They must know how to handle this. They seem confident. They've acknowledged the feedback, of course, but frame it as expected challenges when building something this complex, what they call a sprawling combat playground. Their focus, post-beta, was apparently squarely on refining that core feedback loop, improving hit consistency, dialing back the visual noise, making things clearer.
And they're emphasizing their track record.
Yeah, pointing to their team's experience on huge, long-running titles like Fortnite and Star Wars, The Old Republic, basically saying, trust us, we know how to iterate and polish. This is a beta, we have time before the planned 2025 launch on PC and consoles.
Okay, let's try and wrap this all up then. We've gone through the genres, the hub, the economy, the combat, the beta ups and downs. What's the final takeaway for someone looking at CLOUDHEIM?
I think CLOUDHEIM is fundamentally an experiment in synergy. How does exploration feed building? How does building fund crafting? How does crafting enhance fighting? How does fighting drive selling? It's all about connecting those loops in a new way.
And its success really depends on nailing that combat feel.
Absolutely. They have to transform that visual mess from the beta into something readable, something strategic. The physics in mana burn systems need to feel less like random chance and more like tools you can master. If they pull that off, they might genuinely have something unique.
So this is definitely a game for you if you love diving deep into build customization, constantly tweaking things, and if you enjoy the discovery process in emergent combat systems.
But you absolutely need patience. Patience for them to polish out the rough edges we saw in the beta. The potential payoff seems huge, but it requires seeing past the current clunkiness.
Right. And finally, there's that one weird specific detail the developers mentioned. Something about jelly cows.
Ah, yes. Designer Kim Steiner apparently specifically said, quote, I want players to realize how special jelly cows are.
Jelly cows? In this game with fighting game cancels, post-Ragnarok economics, flying turtles? Okay, that's odd.
It really is. And it makes you wonder, right? Given how much focus there is on the unique economy, the crafting, the physics, what on earth is the role of these apparently charming, perhaps wobbly creatures?
Are they endgame crafting materials? Will selling premium jelly cow cheese be the ultimate moneymaker?
Or maybe you can launch them with the physics system. Imagine the damage calculation on a high-velocity jelly cow. It's just this delightful little mystery that perfectly sums up the unpredictable, slightly bonkers nature of CLOUDHEIM.
A jelly cow finisher move. Now that's a deep dive for another day. That wraps up our discussion for today. If there's any other game you want us to cover, just let us know. And remember to follow, like, and share to keep the team motivated. Thanks for listening.